Hello everyone, welcome back to cognitiveSEO Talks. Today we have Aleyda Solis with us, international SEO consultant, blogger, and experienced and a great demand speaker, and also the author of the SEO book in Spanish. I'll let Aleyda say a few words about her, and then we'll start with the interview.
Hello, Razvan. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here today. Looking forward to share with all of you. I think you have done already a really good intro, so I don't have much to add other than I have been doing SEO since 2007, most of it from a strategical, technical, international standpoint. So I'm very looking forward to share with you today.
So you do a lot of things in the SEO world, as you mentioned: international SEO, mobile SEO, technical SEO, consulting, SEO consulting mainly from what I know. Can you please tell me, what do you think defines you best?
Yeah, I think that, well, being an SEO consultant, specifically like this, I think it defines me well, because it's what I actually love to do, like to do. And I actually do at an online basis. I know many of us and many people who have started doing SEO many years ago, as I did 11 years ago, have like evolved, developing agencies, right? So they are now much more in the managerial or leadership type of roles. In my case, I have on purpose not created an agency, but a small consultancy, because I actually enjoy doing SEO on a day-to-day basis, like really like from a strategical and also more tactical standpoint. So the SEO consultant tag still defines me very well, I have to say. And then of course I am also a founder. I have the responsibility of having founded my own business, of taking care of more than SEO, not only SEO, of course. And but yes, the SEO consultant for me is also something that I am actually very proud of.
Okay, and are you also doing the whole implementation about when you're doing SEO consulting, or you're not doing implementation at all?
No, I had actually only done implementation for my own projects, my own tests, my own websites, but actually, since I started doing SEO from the agency side many years ago, then I moved in-house. Then I moved as a consultant at many different companies and now my own. My role has been always to recommend advice. I do the audits, I do the analysis, I establish the recommendations. But since the companies I always consult for are bigger companies, they have their own developers, they wouldn't allow me to touch anything, and I don't want to touch anything also. It's much better to have responsibilities well established out there. I am very actionable. I work on a day-to-day basis, and I actually coordinate and prioritize and validate the changes, but I don't do the changes myself. I think that is something very important, because well, developers are developers, and that is what they know best. Copywriters, content marketers are content marketers, and I won't be able, very likely, to write better content, specialized content also in many industries than what they can actually. So it's and then also you have like PR, outreach strategies, right? And it will be like not very like self-aware of me, and to try to cover all the other disciplines. For me, the best way that SEO can help bigger organizations, I mean, I understand that you need to do it all when you have a small website, unfortunately, but if you have resources, and companies usually have them, at least they do have a proper developer, a proper copywriter, a proper PR person and promotional person. The ideal way that SEOs can help is to align themselves, to recommend, to work together to achieve the specific goals that are established.
Yeah, big brands have this luxury of having a ton of SEO people, a ton of developers, content marketers, and so on and so forth. But for example, for you, How did you start? How did you do all this stuff for your own agency? How did you promote your own agency? What's the growth engine for your agency? Was it SEO? Was it something different?
No, I have been doing SEO since 2007. I have been speaking at conferences since 2010 or so. So a lot of people in the industry already knew me. I had the great chance many years ago of starting an idea also to start sharing my own experiences, and I started writing posts since, yeah, I don't know, since 2007, 8, since I started also in Spanish and then in English. So yeah, most of the clients that I get nowadays, I don't pitch to companies, they come to me actually, and that is a really nice position to have. I'm a very lucky person.
Initially, I'm sure that you pitched when you were in the
not as myself.
You never pitched?
Not as myself, at least. When I was working many years ago, I don't know, 2007, 2008, when I was working for another agency, not my own. Yes, I had to, work on pitches, etc. Also, when I was working again from the agency side, I had to help on pitches a couple of times, but not now. Thankfully, now the clients that have specific needs in SEO, they get in touch. They ask for my proposal. Of course, they ask us other options, as it is normal. But I mean, I don't participate in these huge requests for proposals with tons of documents to fill and this type of stuff. I prefer to actually personalize my proposals and specify how I am going to move the needle, how I'm going to address their specific issues and needs, right? So I've actually been very lucky from this side, and that hasn't actually in any way like challenged myself to be able to work with bigger clients. Many of my clients are huge companies. Sage, I have helped companies like Under Armour or VF, which is ISPEC, Seven for All Mankind, Kipling, in the past of huge companies. So, and it's because of this. Definitely, I think that, of course, personal branding, selling yourself and establishing yourself for something very unique, very specific, unique selling proposition here is key in order to be able to achieve that point.
What are the most common issues you hear from your clients? Do you see any commonality in the problems that they have, in the challenges that they want to overcome?
Oh, well, most of my clients are multinational companies or companies that are trying to reach an international audience, and they have seen challenges in the past because they have hired other agencies, or they still have other agencies, or even in-house SEOs, but they have specific scenarios or use cases where they need extra help and external input or validation, especially from a strategical standpoint, and how to overcome this very competitive market, this very competitive niche.
Can you share an example of a task that you were given from a company?
Yeah, for example, like last year, I helped a specific company to grow their visibility in Mexico. This is a company that have presence across all Latin American countries, but specifically the Mexican market were giving them more challenges because of the very well-established players that already existed there. So I helped them to establish the best possible strategy. Largely was also to start targeting more queries, establishing more the authority in certain areas where they hadn't had in the past on one hand, and then on the other hand also to improve the overall base of their crawlability, their indexability, a much more efficient.
How did you do it? What's the secret that you recommended them to implement?
There's no secret behind SEO. Yeah. The best secret on doing good SEO is to know very well the principles, the criteria, and know very well how to assess from a strategical standpoint.
Can you be specific about that customer? What challenge did how did you improve their visibility? By changing the site
sorry,
structure?
I haven't changed. I cannot be sharing the stories of specific
you
clients.
Didn't share the name of the customer, so if you can, it's okay. If no, I understand. No worries.
No, sorry.
Okay, no problem. What do you think is the most effective SEO strategy or tactic that you have ever applied to your customers?
Well, actually, what I do is an in-depth analysis. I don't think on SEO as a set of tactics. I think that ultimately won't work, and it's not scalable and reasonable. What I actually have is a framework of questions that I ask for any client, and then that the answer will give lights on what is the best approach to address that client, like doing for example, a competition analysis with the top players from that market, the way that the client is structuring their content and targeting that market, the role of content versus authority for that specific market. In many markets, is definitely the links that will move the needles. In many other markets, it's more about having the right approach to the right terms, the right queries, because the competition in these markets is not so high, like in many Latin American countries, for example. So it's about doing a very in-depth analysis on market research to start well, to be able to define the actions that will be much more meaningful for that specific company in that specific market, and for those specific queries where they really want to establish themselves, right? So that is why, for me, it's all about thinking from a marketing perspective and applying those principles in the search platform.
How do you usually do a competitive research for your customers?
Well, I ask them always, well, their property first. That is the first input. Then the properties of their competitors. And this is something important. The client might give you a few of their competitors. This might not necessarily be their actual competitors. These are just the companies that they maybe are usually seen to be competing from a business perspective, which might not be necessarily their SEO competitors, because these are the ones that might be even trying to rank for the same queries. Then I use tools like, for example, SEMrush, Ahrefs, Systrix, to identify which are the queries that these competitors or the players in the industries are ranking for which the company is not. If they are not ranking for many of these terms, I ask myself, is because this is not an actual target for them? This because it is a target, but they don't have any web structure, any content targeting for this yet. They are not enabling this content, or if they are, it's because it's not optimized at all, or they don't have resources to do it. So I start, again, asking questions to identify opportunities of optimizing what they already have, or start creating something new that they can use to address the relevant queries that will bring value, traffic that is relevant, not only from a transactional perspective, but also from an informational one.
More and more people are talking about technical SEO lately. In my opinion,
not
technical
lately.
SEO...
I mean, I don't understand why people say lately. For example, I understand that at some point in the past, a lot of people wanted to jump into the content marketing bandwagon when they say SEO was dead or whatever, with Penguin, Panda, whatever updates that happened many years ago. In my case, I have always called myself an SEO. I have done always crawlability and indexability audits. I have done migrations since forever. So I don't know why, like, for some reason, a lot of people say, oh, now everybody talks about technical SEO. It's like, I have been always doing the technical SEO, and actually that is what I have been doing more.
It's a perception probably for people that weren't doing SEO in the past. So I've been doing SEO since before Google was mainstream. So I've been doing SEO since it was Alta Vista and InfoSeek and Lycos. It was before the 2000 years. And it was all about technical SEO, and following from that time, it was also about technical SEO. I think when content marketing appeared mostly on social media, it started a lot of people coming from this area of with no technical background at all, and jumping into the social media side of things. SEO from a technical perspective, how it was perceived by people, was starting to be diluted as a concept. But SEO was always technical.
Yeah, indeed. That is
Yeah,
why I don't understand on doing an SEO process without doing an audit, technical audit, right? A validation if the site is crawlable, or if there is a robots.txt blocking, I don't know, most important pages. If there's a canonicalization issue, or like, I really don't understand how people were able to do SEO without doing that in the first place. But hey, okay, let's continue with the conversation.
You talk a lot about accelerated mobile pages, AMP, mobile first index, and other topics. If you have a chance to tell every person struggling with mobile SEO one thing, what would it be and why? What do you think is the most important mobile-related SEO?
I think that the most important thing right now, especially with a mobile first index that Google will, well, it's already switching to a mobile first index, is to make sure that you actually provide a mobile optimized version, right? A lot of people think that they already have one just because their site is responsive, which is not true. They might have a responsive site, but they are not necessarily effectively targeting and fulfilling their mobile audience behavior necessarily, and targeting the right queries, the right terms, indexing the right content, or even blocking the bot if accessing like important critical resources like the JS or CSS or images that they need to actually be able to deliver the best experience. So the first thing to do, I will say, is to crawl your site. Speaking of technical SEO, right? Crawl your site, go to a crawler, to Screaming Frog, Cybolt, Deep Crawl, Bodify, whatever, and crawl your site, simulating to be the mobile Googlebot, to really see and check if it is able to access or of your mobile web presence, in case you have one. And you should have one at this point. And if you don't, then it will the task will be to enable one. And then that the behavior is the expected one, that the content is there, that the titles are optimized with the descriptions, the SEO basics, because in many cases, again, on websites that have independent mobile sites or dynamic serving sites, the content that had been placed, or the information that had been placed in the mobile HTMLs was not the same, was trimmed information than the one that existed in the desktop one. So that is another task, additional task, if people had these other type of configurations to do. And then, of course, is the opportunity out there, the opportunity of addressing many different type of queries that are nowadays like becoming more and more of use with mobile first, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that is also important to start migrating all this SEO day-to-day type of analysis and step, to segment well and identify well what is the behavior of that the users specifically have on mobile. Something also very important, actually, addressing the AMP question that you had. Speed is critical. It's even more critical. It's critical in general in SEO, I have to say, beyond the conversion impact that it will tend to have. But also, as a ranking factor, Google confirmed that since July, they are going to start taking speed into consideration as a mobile ranking factor. I have to say that a lot of people think of enabling AMP, accelerated mobile pages, as a magic solution for their website in general, or mobile presence of being slow. I will say something. The first thing to do is actually making your own website fast.
Faster.
That should be the fundamental, first and foremost, because that is your actual original canonical version that will be crawled, that will be indexable, and the one that will be ranked. AMP should be seen as an alternative. If there's no way for you to change or to improve your own speed, then okay, you can enable an AMP version of your site in order to improve your performance, if you cannot do it with your canonical one, or to be included in the carousel. And this is the thing, a lot of people wanted to be included in the mobile SERPs carousel to have the better visibility, so I ended up doing it. Sorry?
Do you see any disadvantage with AMP? Because
well,
a lot of people
are the disadvantage that I have seen until now with many of my clients is that many of the priorities have had have changed, unfortunately. You know, we had a very well set plan with allocated resources for the SEO efforts and process. And now with AMP, that it started a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that changed completely. And of course, I understand that AMP was a solution, like a good workaround or alternative, but many websites were pressured to do it as a priority, because that was the only way that they will have been able to have the expected visibility in the carousel. So that didn't become an option for them. It became like a priority, right? So it ended up like affecting many of my processes, in the sense that, oh, I have to reorganize all of these priorities now, and sometimes even more fundamental things had to be left a little bit in the side until AMP was able to be launched. Then on the other hand, I have to say something. This has been until now, but for example, I had the chance to speak at the AmConf event 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and the reality is that the AMP effort is being moved and pushed to be just more than an alternative to achieve a fast performance for mobile sites. It is being pushed of being somewhat as an alternative from a technological perspective, from a platform perspective, to actually build and create delightful experiences, as it was described, right, on mobile, because you can actually use AMP as an option to develop your own canonical, your original website, right? And yeah, like, and honestly, like, I can definitely see the point why many of the development and SEO community, they don't necessarily like that, because that is the reason why we have open platforms and standards, etc. The reality is that it's impressive the work that they're doing from a technological standpoint. For example, implemented something like a parallax type of effects, or implemented something as a I don't know, a tab, or having certain animations that they are able to implement very easily with the unbind component, which can be, many of these effects are achievable through normal JavaScript, yes, of course, but they take so many more resources, and they end up being much more trickier to implement, and they take much more effort and hurt performance, that they are doing a very, very good job of making a point of why we can use AMP, not only for purely enable an alternative fast mobile version for a site, but actually to use it as an option, technological option, to build our own original website, which is what I see that is being pushed and promoted, right?
What do you think are the top 5 Google ranking factors at the moment?
Oof. Definitely, on one hand, like, I don't even think of 5. I think that most important ones have been always content and links, and then that the content and links are accessible and indexable, and that's it. Content and links, accessible and indexable, and yeah.
Okay, it's a mix. You can't rank only with content. I was saying it's a mix. You can't rank only with content, and you can't rank.
Oh my God! It's very unlikely to be able to rank only with content for any meaningful, profitable query. I mean, for any meaningful, profitable query that makes money in a competitive industry, it is going to have many highly authority companies going for them. So you need links, external links, to be able to be perceived as an authority. Like, for whatever meaningful term, like that, it might be not only perceived by you and your brother and sister, but by the main companies and authorities in a field that is likely to be competitive. So yes, you will need links. The thing is, for big brands and established brands, and if you do any type of marketing, it will be likely much more easier for you. For example, for my clients in general, I don't build links. Why? Because these are very well established companies that they have their own PR team, their marketing team, they're content marketers. So what I do is to teach
link builders.
Yeah. So I help them, I teach them, I align SEO best practices so they make the most out of the already existing actions that they do to promote themselves. And then on the other hand, they have already spontaneous mentions because they are very well established brands. But that is because of the type of clients that I have, right? However, I understand completely that if you start from scratch in a very competitive sector, you need to really like be out there. Actually, now that you wanted me to share something more specific, actually, like a couple of years ago, I started to help, and this was a little bit of a challenge for me, but I really wanted, because it was a really nice opportunity to do many things that I don't usually do. This was a startup from the financial industry, targeting the Spanish market, right? And many of the terms that they wanted and that they needed to rank for were crowdfunding, crowdlending. And these are terms, and they were like a B2B type of company because they wanted to lend or be a marketplace to lend money for small businesses to get investment from people, whatever. Anyway, so but they needed actually to rank and to target terms that were very competitive, because these were terms that were being addressed and targeted by banks, financial institutions, and even the Wikipedia, and of course, like many news sites with huge authority, a high amount of links. So how the hell this little startup that had a rather new domain with very minimal links and authority will be able to compete? But for this, a much generic type of queries or transactional queries that were very, very hard to target, right? So in this case, we established a strategy that took into consideration that they were a very complex industry, and where it was very hard to understand what they were doing and what was happening in the industry. So we created resources. Well, of course, we created, like, first we made like their own main structure, easy to access, crawlable, indexable, very well targeted, with really good specific content targeting the transactional queries. And then on the other hand, what we identify and establish were tons of resources, tons of information to make it so easier to invest in them and to invest actually in anything crowdlending B2B. So we started we defined and created calculators and validators to establish and to verify interest rates and to compare different options. We created a dictionary, financial dictionary, with a really great explanation of what was, I don't know, investment banking, how that works, so things like that, right? And we created many resources. We started interviewing highly prominent financial figures to explain and to share their experience in this market. They started to organize meetups to really establish themselves as an authority in that field and be perceived as someone who wanted to make it financial much more easily understandable, right? And then we did a very specific outreach, for which we actually use Pitchbox as an outreach tool to get in touch with universities, organizations, blogs that cover the financial market in Spain. And of course, like, that helped a lot to connect initially with many of these people and these very prominent figures. At the beginning, of course, there was a little bit of a challenge, a curve that happened there. But the more resources they built, the more authority they got, the more referrals they achieved from many other highly prominent websites. It was far easier to really establish themselves. And at the end, right now, they are like ranking very well for crowdlending plus top areas, crowdfunding plus top areas.
How long did this effort take, since the moment when you pitched the strategy until the moment they started ranking? Was it 6 months, a year, 2 years?
Well, where they're actually saw a change of important trend of traffic, I have to say it was more than a year after it, because it was a very tough market. And now, and this is the beauty of it, now in the last months, like, it's not growing like 5% more on traffic, but doubling the traffic that they got at some point, because they have reached a point where now they have all of this authority. But it's Yeah. So of course it takes a time, but it's possible, it's viable. It's about understanding what is the pain and where is the gap in your market. That is why I mentioned before, there's no rule of thumb. You need to actually analyze your market, understand also what are the resources in the organization, what is viable to do, what is not viable to do, and based on that, align everything to make it happen.
Yeah, with big brands, I think it's easier because they have a lot of cash to burn. And this wasn't the case, for example, a small brand, a small company that would want to fight in that position. Do you agree? How would you go with smaller brands which don't have the budget to do a ton of interviews with known figures, to build a lot of tools?
You know what? This was a startup, and actually I was doing.
Yeah, it was a startup. They had a lot of money to burn.
They had a marketing person, and they had a couple of interns helping them create all this, and that's it.
Okay, so it's an interesting story. Yeah. So an SEO professional usually uses a lot of tools in the market, and the SEO tools market has been is very big in the last years. We've been with cognitive SEO in the market since late 2011. How do you see cognitive SEO fit into your SEO toolbox? What problems do you solve with cognitive SEO?
Yeah, well, in my case, I think that cognitive SEO is a nice. What I love the most is the interface, that it makes it so easier to better understand the context of my link authority in the market. I probably and mostly use it for link authority comparison. And there are two things that I really like and for which I use it is because I am able to import the link sources from many other tools and the tool set. So what I really want to have, especially with new markets that I don't know anything about, right, is I really need to research. I really want to have a good overview of what is happening there from an authority perspective. So what I do is to go and try to grab as many external links, backlinks that my client and their competitors have. And then I import them all in cognitive SEO to be able to have them in a consolidated way and with aligned metrics. So I am able to have them all in a single place, that it makes it easier for me to compare, to better understand what is lacking there. And then on the other hand, how easy is that made by the interface, right? With many other tools, like they offer really a good link index too. However, the problem is to be able to segment all that data, to do that in Excel, which is a pain. So I gladly pay money in order to save myself that effort and time to be able to identify much more easily. It's like, oh, take a look. The strategies that these people follow in the past were one of, I don't know, building links through badges or to widgets or whatever, because I see that many of the links are coming all from the sidebar and they are actually getting links from images. So it's like, oh, they should be penalized. They shouldn't be ranking like this. Things like that, right? That much more easily to spot thanks to the segmentation that cognitive SEO has, right? So it saves me tons of time to be able to identify not only the gap, the best way to address and to grow the authority of my clients and to recommend and be as specific as possible and actionable as possible in my recommendations. Like, let's grow on volume of links. Or no, take a look. Like, they have even more links that you, but the authority is lower. So it's not necessarily about volume of links, but on link authority, on link quality, things like that, right? To identify the existing gap and what should be the focus of the actions that I will recommend.
Okay, thank you for sharing this. To close this interview, I have a hypothetical question for you. If tomorrow Google shuts down, what would you be working on? How do you think you will switch?
I will continue doing SEO in whatever other platform people use to search. We need to understand that we use Google to optimize for, because this is the platform that people use to search at the end of the day. But in other markets, in Russia, people use Yandex. Actually, in the past, many years ago, when I was doing SEO for a Forex company, I used to also do SEO for Yandex. That was a little bit of more like the Wild West, but it was good learning. So we need to understand that the fact that we optimize for Google is only like,
Google is
people
the
use this,
mass market player, and that's the only reason.
Indeed, that is the platform that people use. If the people use another platform, then we will be there, and then we will need to learn how to optimize the presence of our clients there to achieve the visibility that they need to convert.
Yeah. Do you think it's harder today to optimize for Google than it was 2 years or 3 years ago?
Of course.
Do you feel that your job is much harder?
Of course it is. If I compare it to how hard it was, I don't know, 10 years ago when I was starting, of course it's much harder. I have to answer regarding 2 years ago, for example. I think that it hasn't necessarily changed that much if you're working with real businesses, and that is the one thing, that is the key, right? If you're a real business, you have something meaningful, you have something valuable to sell, then there will be always an opportunity to write information around that, to be meaningful, to be relevant. The problem is that when you have a website where the business is on attracting visits and that's it, and selling ads, that there are certain areas where, so my point is, there are certain areas where I see is becoming much more difficult for many companies. There are more websites out there, whatever, but they have the benefit of already having like a good brand. So it depends, I would say. It's harder for the newcomer maybe, or for the sites that don't have a brand behind or a strong product behind. Because at the end of the day,
stuff like this.
Yes, because at the end of the day, SEO is about marketing. So if you have a good product with you, it's much easier to do marketing. It's much easier to do SEO indeed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today, the cognitiveSEO Talks podcast. And if you have anything further that you would like to share with our listeners.
Yeah, I think that in general, what I will share is that in order to be, I think, successful in SEO is that you actually need to enjoy having this type of challenges, that the SEO industry is always changing. There's always going to be something new. So it's about keeping up to date, doing your own tests, identifying if the next feature, it can be an opportunity for your client to profit from, to make the most out of it, and to better understand where your efforts might really be more worthy to actually move the needle of your client traffic, because there are always so many things to do, so little resources, right? So that is the most critical need, I will say, to always be able to align and to double question the actions to make sure that they really fit the right need on your process.
I love the interview today with you. You talked like a real SEO geek in the positive sense of the word. SEO is a lot about technicalities. In the end, it's not only marketing, like content marketing and all the stuff. So thank you for being here, and wish you all the best with your own agency and the consultation that you're providing to your own customers.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.